back, boys. In this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to install a Chinese diesel heater. Now, what's different about this video is I'm doing 100% stealth installation, and by stealth, I mean you cannot tell this thing is installed. It uses no space inside the van. I'm just taking advantage of empty space and trying to make this an OEM plus type installation. This is a 99 Chevy Astro, lifted 3 inches, all-wheel drive. This is Project Bad Astro. The tips and tricks here and the way that I'm mounting it should apply to any conversion van, whether it be an Express, an Econoline, one of those Dodge ones. The other thing you're going to want to do when you have one of these heaters is install a roof fan. If you want to see my installation on that, click up here. That again was a little different than most of the videos on the internet because it's a conversion van. Here is what my setup looks like. You can see here's the bed. Conversion vans have these walls here that originally had a VCR right here. I just have my heater plate mounted on an L bracket right here. Now, the really cool thing about these diesel heaters is they really don't use much power at all, but they do use some power. So I really suggest having some sort of secondary house battery system, not your starting battery. I have 2 20 amp hour lithium batteries in this here. I'll show you how those go in here in a little bit, but that will power this diesel heater for freaking ever. It also powers all the lighting up here, so if I fall asleep with some of these lights on, it shouldn't matter. It also powers the fan. So basically everything from the seats back is powered by this house battery system. This also has a Renogy DC to DC charger, so whenever you turn on the van, it's charging these batteries at an extremely fast rate. All right, I'm gonna show you how it works quick, and then we'll get into the installation. So this was originally where the VCR was mounted. I have a little USB charger, 12 volt for the fridge, and voltmeter right here. And then what you're going to want to do is turn this switch on right here. This will turn on your heater. And to turn it on, I'm just going to press and hold on here. Now, what's going to happen is you might see this voltage drop a little bit because it's going to be heating up that glow plug in the heater. Now, I have mounted mine in this wall. It's not super easy to get to, but this is an Astro van, so I don't have a ton of space. Now, I have only run one heat duct here. I originally tried to use this heat duct, which was the original duct for the conversion van for the rear heat setup. Don't do that because they can shut. And you'll see how I almost burned my van down in a little bit here. You can start to hear the clicking. Maybe you can. And now the heat's starting to dump out of here. You can adjust the temperature really easily. The controller on these things is a little finicky and confusing, but that's basically my stealth installation. If I remove this bed here, there's nothing sticking out. It's completely contained within this wall. So this should apply with any conversion van out there. From the outside of the van, you're just gonna hear this clicking and a little exhaust noise. That clicking is the fuel pump. I mounted this outside of the van purely because it's kind of loud if you mount it inside the van. And we'll just look under here a second. There's my muffler and exhaust for the system itself. Now you might be wondering, where did you put the fuel tank, Rob? Let me show you. Astros are smaller than full-size vans, which means every piece of interior space counts. So my fuel tank is mounted in this door, okay? It's again taking up no room and completely stealth install. This is how you refill it. You just go in here, go past all this insulation, and there's my diesel tank right there. This is a completely insulated door now. I ran the fuel hose through this area of the door where the speaker wire travels. So it's completely stealth and uses no space inside the van. Oh, one other thing before we go to the install, this is very important. This is a carbon monoxide detector. I suggest you get one like this. I'll put a link down below, but this one has a display. Some of the cheaper ones don't have displays. I think you really want the display, and you can put this near your exhaust. When these diesel heaters clog up or soot up, they can put carbon monoxide inside the vehicle, which could kill you. So have one of these working at all times. Vital, super vital. We keep ours usually just about here. Leave it like that. That way we can check on it throughout the night. Keeps you safe and it's good peace of mind. All right, now let's jump to the install. There is the heater and the controller. All right, so I have mocked everything up. I have some diesel fuel in the tank, got the fuel pump mounted at the right 15 to 30 degree angle. I've got the intake hooked up, all the wiring hooked up, and now I'm just gonna test fire it and make sure this thing is working before I install it in the van. All right, so as you can hear this thing, I think I got it running. It wasn't starting before, I had to prime the oil pump. I guess that's something you have to do when it's a bit longer, but I didn't do it very long, and you can see my fuel system right now is about 1.5 feet long, so really didn't need to prime it much. But in order to do that, you press and hold these two buttons, I think, to get it into prime mode, and then this is start prime and that's stop prime. And usually you're gonna have clear hose right here, so you'll see when it gets here it should be good. But yeah, it's starting to put out some heat now, so I'm gonna let this thing rev up, and then we're gonna open the garage and leave it for another night. I bought the smaller 2 kilowatt diesel heater, and I'm gonna try to see if I can put it within this wall. I might be even reusing these vents, I'm not sure yet. What I think I wanna do is start disassembling this wall to see what I have going on here. So this was interesting just because I never really knew how these walls were attached in here, but really there's just a couple fasteners. You need to remove the lower part of the blinds, and then there's just some L brackets and a couple screws, and then you pretty much have to pull this way and then up. It's this pillar cover that's holding it down, and then the brackets are holding it against there. There's nothing on the floor holding it to the floor, at least in this type of conversion van. Now that I have this all apart, I think my plans have changed a little bit. Originally, I was going to be putting the diesel heater right here in this area, kind of in front of the gas tank. But after looking at this, now that it's all uncovered, I think I'm going to be putting the diesel heater back here in this corner, and then I'm going to be putting the house battery right there along with all the wiring, since it's kind of a lot of wires there already. So onward to the install. We're gonna go with this corner, and I've never done one before. Let's see how it goes. So the issue I'm running into is when I am underneath the van, there's like a bumper support and like some body stuff coming off the floor here. So it's clear pretty much 7 inches behind the wheel well. I could probably fit something like this. But if I put this here, and then you put this and line that up, the intake is gonna be just jammed. Somehow I need to get this shifted forward. Here's where we are right now. I have the heater mounted up. I did not mount it to the floor of the vehicle just because it did not work with my installation requirements here. Using a hole saw, I made the holes bigger than required, and then I bent this kind of around the edge of the metal. And there was still a little gap, so I just used some really high temp silicone. I think that'll be fine, but I'm gonna run it just to make sure. So we're gonna try to go hook up the fuel pump, and for the fuel tank location, there's not really a super good spot for it in an Astro. So there's a lot of room kind of over there underneath the van. There's a lot of room under here underneath the van. The problem is refilling the tank requires you to either drop the tank or do something really weird. But what I'm gonna do is something I saw online, where I'm gonna mount a tank in this rear door. And then I'm gonna run the fuel line through here, down there, under the van, to the fuel pump, and then it's gonna come back right here. So I'm getting the fuel pump out of the van since it's the noisiest part. And then this should allow easy refueling. I'm just gonna have like some sort of Velcro flap or something that I'll lift up, and then I can squirt more diesel in there. So yeah, let's keep moving. All right, temporary fuel tank until the door tank gets here. Okay, so everything's hooked up. We're gonna try to test fire this thing. So it's using a ton of power right when it starts. You can see the voltage drop. I have it hooked up to a charger right here. So that's the temperature it is in here, and this is what I have it set to. So we're just gonna put it back to that and wait till it turns to 19. So hot right now.
That Hansel.
All right, present state. We are leaving for a 3,000 mile road trip in 4 or 5 days, and this is what the van looks like. Awesome. So when you buy a diesel heater, they come with this 10-liter tank. This is asking a lot. Maybe if I got rid of the speaker, mounted this whole thing over, I don't know. This is just going to be really challenging to get in there. So I picked up a 5-liter tank. This is still going to be enough fuel for a weekend at least with heat, because this thing really sips fuel. And then we're going to be running the fuel line through where the speaker wires go. So should be pretty much invisible unless you know what you're looking for. One thing to do whenever you're working on the inside of a panel or insulating something is to spray down the interior with a corrosion inhibitor. I really like this stuff. I used to use Shield T9. That was developed by Boeing for mothballing aircraft for long periods of time. Pretty good stuff, but it's a little thinner. This stuff just goes on a little thicker. It's just like a waxy oil. You spray it on and it's never gonna rust. So I'm gonna do that before I do anything else in here. So I'm gonna have to drill a couple holes over here, and we're gonna run the fuel down below to the fuel pump, and then this is where it's gonna come back up. So all these diesel tanks come with a couple different ways of hooking up the fuel pickup. One of them is they come with these little baggies that have this threaded thing, and what you're supposed to do, so this one you're supposed to drill a hole near the bottom of the tank, and you put the hose there, and then you capture this with a couple O-rings. I don't really like those because they can leak. So I'm going to be using this style, which is just a metal tube. This way you can put this part on the top of the tank, and then you just bend the tube toward the bottom of the tank. Less chance of leaking, and I think it's going to be fine. I think that looks pretty good. You can see the pickups down in the corner. What I'm going to do, because I did drill right near this seam, I'm just going to put a grommet with some RTV there. I mean, technically this plate here should be on a level part of the gas tank, but the only sealing surface is right here. So I'm just going to put some RTV there and smash this gasket down on there, and then we're going to use the fasteners to hold it down. It should be fine. Alright, so I didn't film myself installing everything, but I want to show you a couple pointers here. So one is when you run the fuel line through here, the fuel line is going to basically be held in, there's a rubber grommet in there that the speaker wires run through, and it's going to kind of grab it. So what that means is that you need to have extra fuel line in the door, and you want to make sure it's enough fuel line that when you open the door all the way, it doesn't tug on anything. What you're going to want to do is actually put a loop of the fuel line. So this fuel line does not go straight to the fuel filter or the tank. It goes down and it makes a loop. That way, when the door articulates, that loop kind of grows bigger or smaller, and you don't tug on anything. The other thing I did is I mounted this fuel tank high enough where this doesn't get in the way, and I can still get to my fuel filter if I need to. It's going to be annoying, but that's serviceable. You also want to make sure you don't get near any of the door actuation mechanisms. To prevent this from moving around, I'm actually going to take spray foam and just sort of put it in a couple spots to help the foam stay where it's going to be. But overall, this thing is kind of in there already. Couple tips for installing the diesel heater itself. The kit's gonna come with a bunch of screwdriver worm clamps for the fuel fittings and stuff. Throw those away, they leak, they suck. You wanna get these things. They're the single ear clamps, single one-time use, and they usually come with a set of pliers like this, and you crimp them on there, and it provides a 360-degree compression. So when you try to use hose clamps on a diameter that small, they never work. The other thing I'm going to do, just because this does have the exhaust inside the vehicle a little bit, is I'm going to wrap that exhaust with some header tape. This is just fiberglass tape with a couple metal zip ties. We're going to wrap that around there just to help keep the heat in the pipe. I do have reflective stuff everywhere, so it should be fine anyway, but it's another layer of protection. All right, it's the next day. I didn't get everything on camera because I am rushing. This van has to be ready to go by the end of the day, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff to still do. So I'll show you what I have been working on. I bought these 4-pack charger voltmeter things, and I put one right here, and then right here, I haven't mounted it yet, but here's the diesel heater. So, bam. So that's gonna go up on a little bracket, kind of sit in the corner there. And then down here, I mounted the DC to DC charger against the wood part of the wall, and then the batteries are right underneath it. I am gonna put a sheet of rubber over the top of the batteries, and then once this wall is attached, I'm going to wedge them in there with some pink foam using this access hole. So the power for the furnace will come out of the batteries, and all the charging infrastructure and everything on the ceiling. So the RGB LEDs that I backdated, the aircraft lights, and the ceiling fan, everything is always going to come out of these batteries, and I never need to flip a switch. It's just whenever you drive the car, it's going to fluff these things up, and whenever you use the power, they have built-in battery management systems, so you shouldn't be able to hurt them by discharging them too deep. So pretty maintenance free. All right, so I decided to let the heater rip for a little bit just to make sure everything was working, and the exhaust strap smoked a little bit, which I read is normal. It's going to do that for a little bit. But anyway, I just noticed this, which is kind of funny. So I reused the existing vents in my van, and I don't know if you can see that, but this is like that's not good. We're leaving in a few days, and the vent itself is melting. Yes. Yep. Awesome. So that's not good. Factory 1999 conversion van vent, and it was not up to the temps of the diesel heater. It melted and then shut itself, and then because it shut itself, it was building up heat. It actually discolored my wood here, so that's cool. But now that it's smoky, guess what? Try this out. There we go. Haven't totally finished installing this, still need to put the shroud around here, but it's close. All right, dudes, that's about it for this video. Hopefully you guys learned something. This is definitely the stealthiest install of a Chinese diesel heater that I've ever seen. Tried to do it a little differently, and I'm really stoked with how it turned out. As a follow-up to this video, I haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna say click up here for when it is done. I'm gonna have some high altitude tips to run a Chinese diesel heater because, yeah, you don't really wanna be taking these things apart and trying to fix them when it's freezing cold. So make sure you stay tuned for that video. Till then, see you next time. Cheers.
Did you say about